Hey, we are live. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I am Anita Adams, founder of Joyful Inspired Living, and our goal is to help 1 million plus people find more joy in their lives. Increasing your joy can start with some simple daily habits, and that's why I'm so excited to have Charito Kaay joining us today to share some of her tips on creating a joy-filled life you love through meditation. Charito Kaay is lifestyles, a certified raw vegan chef, and the founder of Vibrant.
Thank you, Anita, for having me.
Welcome, Charito. I'm so pleased to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Anita, for having me here. And it is simply a pleasure today to talk about my experiences in mindfulness and meditation and share with your audience and yourself. We had this lovely chat in the past week or so about how it has transformed my life and catapulted me into this natural, healthy lifestyle through the art of mindfulness and meditation.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump right in. And I wanted to start with the title of this talk, which is Becoming a Superhero Through the Power of Mindfulness. Can you please define for us what the difference is between mindfulness and meditation?
I actually looked at the definition of mindfulness and meditation. I don't aspire to be an expert or claim to be one, nor a teacher in mindfulness or meditation. All I can speak to is my own experiences. Mindfulness, when I looked it up, it said mindfulness is being aware of something and practicing non-judgment, being present. Meditation, images that come up into my mind is closed eyes, stillness, silence, and the definition is nothingness. So there's the difference between something and nothingness. So let me clarify that a little bit. In my past experience 10 years ago, I went to a silence retreat to learn how to meditate. And at that meditation retreat, they use the art form of mindfulness to get us into the meditation calm state. So mindfulness is more being aware of what's happening in the present. And by using mindfulness through meditation, we can be aware of our surroundings when we're mindful, but through meditation, we're trying to narrow it down to being mindful of what's happening in our body, because that's sometimes a lot easier to go within our body and be aware of our sensations, our breath, being aware, so that's mindful of our breath during meditation, so we can eliminate any of the things that are barriers for us to be calm, clearing our mind, because oftentimes our mind will wander to what happened in the past, what we need to do in the future, which is not being present, which is the definition of mindfulness, just being whatever is happening now in this present moment. We take ourselves everywhere. So this is how we can ground ourselves in meditation, is ground ourselves within ourselves. And through the art form of mindfulness and being aware of what's happening within us and how we're interacting with the environment in the present moment, we can possibly ground ourselves in that meditation practice.
So it's not about emptying the mind like we hear in people talking about meditation and just being completely silent and empty. It's about going in and checking what's going on with you currently right now. What about like listening to sounds around you that's happening in the present? Does that take you out?
That's mindfulness. That's being aware of what's presently in the moment. Okay. Mindfulness. And so meditation, there's many types of meditation. In fact, there's many techniques to calm the mind, not necessarily meditation, some unhealthy, some healthy. And you talk about clearing the mind. So one of the hindrances to clearing the mind is not being present, not being mindful, meaning our mind wanders to something that isn't present, a conversation that we had, or feeling a sensation in our body that is happening now, and deciding you're gonna think about something that happened in the past, such a car accident, such as a conversation we had with a coworker or a loved one that is not being present, without judgment of what's happening in the now. Non-judging in the present moment is mindfulness.
Okay, got it. Is that a necessary step that you need to master, the mindfulness, being present, before you can clear the mind and go to the next stage, if you will, of meditation?
Oftentimes people will use meditation as a means of helping to calm themselves or towards the journey of. And mindfulness states that we are not trying to seek joy or happiness or calmness. We may get there, but there's simply no guarantee, because we can only know what's happening now. And oftentimes being mindful and also meditation initially causes unpleasant sensations and frustration, which is the opposite of calm and joyfulness. And in this world that we live in, often most people, I would say, are adverse to negative situations, unpleasant sensations, fear, which is a manifestation of something in our body that is unpleasant.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear this, because when I first started my meditation journey, and I'm assuming that this is probably an experience that's really common to a lot of people who understand the benefits of meditation, but struggle with sticking with it, because we're told that we're supposed to, empty our mind and sit in silence and just let the thoughts go. And that's so hard to do. And I feel like if I had known what you're talking about, just settling and being present and being mindful, I feel like I would have stuck with the meditation a lot earlier than I did. It took me years to finally get to a place where I feel really good about my meditation practice. And I gave up, and it was constantly repeating, trying to get going. So I love this idea of mindfulness and just being present to what is happening in and around you in the moment. That's really awesome. Now, I want to ask you, you talk about how mindfulness, how meditation has transformed your life, and how you've become a superhero. Well, I want to hear how you've become a superhero and how this has transformed you. Do you want to tell us your personal story?
I was introduced to mindful meditation, simply the art of being mindful, through my husband, who's a retired mental health consultant. And at first I was quite adverse to the idea of meditation. I was working as an environmental engineer, so high productivity, being busy in this North American culture is applauded. Being productive, having a to-do list that you check off and get as much as possible done in a day. However, what I failed to understand at the time was that it was affecting my body on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Without the time of respite, rest, deep calmness in the body, I was in constant fight or flight mode. It was like a drug to me. This adrenaline rush to be busy all the time and we wear pat on the back,
We wear that like a badge of honor, how busy I am. And we always talk about we're so busy, and it's like we're strangely proud of being like super busy. It's just not healthy.
For short periods of time, but the body isn't capable of handling that high amount of stress on a constant basis. Short periods of time when we need to have this fight or flight mode so that we can energize ourselves, get going, can be exciting. Jumping off out of a plane, or scuba diving, or doing something interesting or challenging creates that kind of adrenaline rush. However, the body needs its time to rest. During times of stress, our our mind is in a calm state, our body is in a state where it's not at rest, so that it can digest what is happening around us in that moment in time. We're caught in our thoughts, and our body is coming along for the ride, coursing through stress hormones and tightness in our body, which we are not aware of potentially. And this is where we allow ourselves to mindfully, actively feel the sensation of rest through mindfulness, through meditation. And what I liked about mindfulness meditation is I got to practice being present, only focusing on in the now, keeping a calm space, quiet space, myself, no other people to interact with while I practice the art of mindfulness in a meditation state. And what I did was take that practice into real life, where the more and more you practice mindfulness meditation, you could take it into real life where you're bombarded by triggers, bombarded by people, bombarded by multiple stimulations, and learning to go back within yourself and be mindful and observe what's going on within ourselves, in addition to what's happening around us. So we can focus ourselves, so we can collect that information for ourselves without reacting inappropriately, which can often happen because we've let our emotions and our feelings override how we're going to react in the situation.
So you're saying that the mindfulness or meditation practice helps you deal with stressful situations in a more productive manner or healthy manner. And am I hearing you're also saying that you can be more productive when you actually take time for yourself to meditate?
For myself, I was able to be more honest with myself, so that I can react with a situation with truth and integrity, versus selling your soul, where you are asked to do something, you react instantly saying, yes, I will do it, rather than checking in with yourself, being aware of how is the question or the request affecting our body, our mind, because we're reacting quickly in the moment.
Got it.
It takes practice to be able to be mindful in situations where you're being triggered. And so we practice that mindfulness in meditation or in solo. Yeah. It can be easier for some people to practice mindfulness outside of meditation. For instance, doing tasks or chores or activities throughout our life, like doing the dishes, we can practice being mindful, checking in. How do we feel when we're washing the dishes? Practicing, what do we notice? How are we feeling about this chore? Does it make us feel happy, joyful, something else? And there's a whole range of emotions that go from good to bad, frustration, a little bit irritated. There's a whole range of emotion that when we're in the fight or flight mode, it goes to more of a gross emotion that may be unhealthy in dealing with other people or ourselves as well, rather than feeling all the nuances within our body and as well in our emotions, being aware of how the environment and ourselves affect us. It's a relationship that we have to accept within ourselves, a relationship with ourselves.
So I just want some clarity around something. So like checking in on how you're feeling. You gave the example of doing chores, doing the dishes and how you're feeling. And often when I'm doing those mundane tasks, I'm like, oh gosh, and this is something I have to do. It's not something that actually brings me particular joy. Are you saying that by just practicing checking in with yourself and figuring out how you feel on those simple everyday chores, that we become more in tuned with checking in with how we're feeling about, say, something that's a much bigger, maybe life decision that comes, or something bigger that happens in our life. So we are tapped in and understanding the emotions that are going on. Is that a fair assessment of why you suggest doing something like that?
Yeah, that is a fair assessment. And to be honest, as a environmental engineer, and I've left that job 10 years ago, the idea of feelings and the way I grew up, feelings weren't something that I described. So for someone to say, how are you feeling? Good, bad, that was the range kind of my vocabulary. In fact, I had to go through a process where looking at a dictionary of types of emotions and the range of emotions was something I had to learn for myself. And so checking in with how my body feels, a sensation, like a tightness in my chest or a sweatiness or heaviness within my body was a lot easier for me to quantify as a scientist. And those sensations in my body was a lot easier for me to understand, to determine where in my body am I feeling the sensations. And I may decide to equate it to how I'm feeling. So there'll be a sensation, I'll have a thought, and then it'll be an emotion. However, through mindfulness, we want to actually stop that process of creating stories of why we have a sensation in our body, and next step, a feeling and emotion, whether it be unpleasant or pleasant, and simply being in the moment without judgment. So this takes a lot of practice. So simply doing the dishes might be unpleasant. It's a chore. That's a judgment. So we practice mindfulness by saying we're simply taking a dish, we're lathering it up, it feels hot or cold, and practice without judgment the activity or the observation like a scientist in that moment in time. And then that way we don't create an emotion and a thought that is unpleasant in our mind, and just simply resting that part of the brain. And we get used to being in situations without judgment and simply observing.
Right. And so then you have that superpower ability to observe what's happening in your life. If it's something big, again, that happens that might stress you out or cause you to be reactionary, you developed this muscle that enables you to observe and then make the best decision for yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Give us a time to have a calm mind and without judgment. Without judgment.
Totally gives me goosebumps, because that is a superpower. That's a total superpower. Like, imagine if we all did that, like the choices we would make in life and how we can lead a more healthy, happy life, because we can be really thoughtful and authentic with our choices. Brilliant. I love that. I love that, Charito.
Yeah, we are also practicing by being mindful, better listeners, because we'll be present in the moment when we're listening to someone, rather than, I'm judging what they're saying. I'm thinking of what I can suggest them. Being present, being in the moment will be better listeners for other people, for ourselves, and collect that information, what's actually happening. That's awesome. Imagine listening to someone you might have had a disagreement with, and simply listening to their words and listening to yourself, being mindful, rather than how the tone of their voice is affecting us, and going back in history about the last time you had a disagreement with this person. It's hard to judge a person without thinking about our past experiences. So we can actually be with people from moment to moment in a new light, and people have a chance of creating new and better relationships with people without being put in jail, emotional jail, every single time they're with you, because you'll dig up the past every single time, or possibly create a future that doesn't exist for the person you're interacting with, or even yourself. We become more resilient ourselves, because we too create a relationship with ourselves if we judge ourselves that we cannot do something because we've done it already in the past and it didn't work. So we can be in this present moment. What is actually happening right now with us?
Yeah, awesome. I have another question that actually stems from this, and we'll try to address this quickly, because there's a few more things I want to ask, and we're running quickly out of time.
Yeah.
When we spoke earlier this week, you talked about the purpose of meditation is to eradicate suffering. And I guess that's very much in line what you're talking about, being mindful and making choices. How can you expand on that idea of eradicating suffering?
So this is where when we are not mindful of what's happening currently in this moment and taking our past experiences and bringing it into the now, we are clouding our judgment. So suffering, we have a feeling in our body, we have a thought, then we have possibly an emotion, and then an action. The emotion can be based on the story and the thought and lies that we tell ourselves, and we create suffering, which is optional. We don't have to suffer about a situation. A little child who has less experience will cut their finger, they'll feel pain, they'll cry, you put a Band-Aid, we're done. An adult would continue talking about the pain in their finger, maybe for days, or a new friend that comes up, they'll keep talking about this cut or what happened, the situation, they'll relive the trauma over and over again. That's suffering. 10 years later, 20 years later, they'll meet a person, at the funeral they haven't seen in 30 years, and then the trauma comes back. So they've been suffering all this time, and it stays within them, and then they're triggered by the visual of this person, or a smell. Anything can trigger. And so what is actually happening now? We notice what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Easier said than done to let it go. Clearly, though, that's the secret, isn't it? To let it go and stop bringing it back up, and yeah.
And reality is this: we too change from moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
We've all changed in the past year. After 2020, we are different people. Absolutely. Now. So if we were to meet people, new people, or old people we've seen in the past, everybody is simply different. Yeah. So to interact with people the same way we did 10 years ago would be kind of strange when we think of mindfulness, because they're not the same person. And neither are we.
Okay, I've got one last question for you. There have been tons and tons of studies on the power of mindfulness and meditation, and the benefits that it can bring into your life, from better sleep to more productivity to healthier relationships to whatever. There's just tons of examples of how it and why it's beneficial. Can you give us a few tips on how to create a successful practice that we're more likely to stick to?
Sure. I would say the example I gave about washing the dishes, you can pick any task to practice mindfulness. It doesn't have to be through the art of meditation. Mindfulness is something that you can practice with either a daily task. I would suggest picking a regular daily task or a time in the day. It could be brushing your teeth. I think most people would either brush their teeth morning or night or multiple times in the day, but pick one task and be mindful. Observe the task that you're doing, and also maybe how you're feeling in the body. And in fact, if we're starting to scan our body and our feeling and it has nothing to do with the brushing our teeth, that is just simply information. Because we start brushing our teeth, we'll feel a tension in our back, our mind will wander to, because our bed needs to be replaced. That is not being mindful. So we practice. So we notice it, and then we bring ourselves back to the sensation of brushing our teeth to practice. And like any muscle or any exercise, the more we practice it, the better we get at being present in the moment, without judgment, without creating stories, without creating lies about what is happening currently in the present moment in time. So find a comfortable, quiet space to be alone. And that's why I picked brushing our teeth. I know some parents, maybe that's not even possible. So pick something, pick a task or place that's quiet to be alone. And maybe you need calming sounds or calming scents. And I've used aromatherapy to help ease myself into meditation at the very beginning. And the reason for that is scent has always been something that reminds me of comfort, my grandmother, my family, my home. It is something that's always ground me in some way. For some people, could be your favorite candle, could be a favorite music or something like that, that puts you in a calm state. It could, for me, it's also the sound of the waves or the ocean or the breeze or being outside, a temperature. And I would say build up to 20 minutes of block time of mindfulness in the first week. And consistency is the key, more so than doing it right, or is more the consistency that you try and do mindfulness every day. So first time could be 30 seconds. It doesn't take me that long to brush my teeth. Try 30 seconds. First day, second day, try 2 minutes. You will start to notice that maybe more thoughts and come into our mind that is not currently in the present moment. Next 5 minutes, not 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And by the 7th day, 20 minutes. And then you can keep on practicing the 20 minutes and you'll find it easier and easier as time goes by. And there are no guarantees that mindfulness will help you. What the key thing is to stick with it. What I can say for myself is that it has created more joy in my life to be able to be present with my relationships, a better relationship with myself, easier to sleep, as you mentioned. And I find myself in situations now that I might have in the past been triggered with unpleasant sensations, anxiety, fear. And now those feelings, those sensations in my body are lessened. So the energy with past triggers are less as time moves on because I'm able to evaluate the situation more so without emotional suffering.
Absolutely. So I want to just recap real quickly. So to build up your practice, you want to start simply by picking a place where you can be alone. And you want to start small with just, even if you only, do it during brushing your teeth, you got your 30, 60 seconds. What can help as well as you're building up this time is to have some scents that will relax you or bring you into a place of calm. Essential oils might be a good way to go.
Or sounds. Some people need sounds. Yeah.
Right. Okay, good. Then start with just scanning your body and then just going through a process of checking in, going from head to toe and scanning your body. And then over time, build that up from 60 seconds. The goal is to do a minimum of 20 minutes. And hopefully you can get there within a week, but don't beat yourself up if you can't. Just take it one step at a time to practice this mindfulness. Is that pretty much it? Did I sum it up?
That's pretty much it. Pick a regular task or time, comfortable space, set the stage, consistency, do it every day, whatever moment that is. And perfect.
Brilliant.
Consistency is key. Do it every day.
Always key. Awesome. Well, Charito, I want to thank you so much for your time, for being here with us today. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. For those of you who are joining us live or catching the replay, if you're here live, we'd love you to say watched it live or type in got the replay. We just love knowing who's checking in. Feel free to post questions. Charito and myself will be monitoring. And if you have any questions about mindfulness or meditation, Charito will have the answers for you. But you also have something else to share that we're going to post in the comments. Do you want to tell us what that is really quickly?
Yeah, I have a few resources. There's 3 quick mindfulness exercises to download. And there's also an app that you can download as well. And a couple of other external resources if you want to get going on being accountable to work in a group or other people to help you with your mindfulness practice.
Brilliant. And we'll post those links right away after this live. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. Join us again in a couple of weeks. I've got another interview with a lovely woman, Anita Adams. And you'll have to join us to find out more about what that's going to be. All right. We'll talk to you all later. Have a fabulous, fabulous day. Go off and be joyful. Ciao, everybody.